weighted means are used when some data values are considered more important than others. And that means we want it to account for more value when calculating our averages. A lot of times, weighted means are used in grade calculations as well as GPA as our classic examples for this. A lot of times in classes where maybe you have like homework where 70%, exams where 70%, homework where 30%, that's a weighted average, weighted mean. So our formula for a weighted mean is a little complex, but in the definition, but actually working through it, it's not too terrible. So to start, we're going to have n numbers here, and I'm just calling them x1, x2, x3, and so on, all the way to xn. So there's n numbers there. And now they have all been assigned their respective weights. So x1's weight is W1, x2's weight is W2, and so on. So now our equation for the weighted mean, we can calculate it by taking x1 and multiplying it by its weight, W1. And then we need to add on x2, but x2 is getting multiplied by its weight, W2. And we do this for all of the data values. We'd have x3, and that would get multiplied by W3. And then I'm just going to do our dots to skip over, because obviously we don't want to write all of these down in the formula here. So then we'd have our last x, and that would get multiplied by its respective weight, Wn. And then that would be adding all of our data values together, essentially. But now we need to divide by something here because it's a mean. I'm not going to divide by the amount of numbers I have, but instead we're going to divide by the sum of our weights. So W1 plus W2 plus W3, and continue that until you get to your last weight, which we're calling Wn. And that would simply just be our formula for the weighted mean. So now let's work through two different examples here with calculating grades using a weighted mean. So we have that in Math 139, one professor uses the following weighted system here, where homework is assigned a weight of 1 unit, quizzes are given 1 unit, group activities have 1 unit, each of the 2 exams are 1.5 units, and the final exam is 2 units, for a total of 8 units in the course. And now we want to find the weighted average for a student that earned 92% on their homework, 85% on their quizzes, 93% on group activities, 95% on exam 1, and an 84% on exam 2, and then an 80% on the final exam. So with this, their grades are our data value. In our formula, that would be our x's, while the weights of 1 unit, 1.5 units, 2 units, whatever it is assigned to it, those are the weights, the w's. So now, when they got a 92% on their homework, you can leave this in the percentage form, or you can convert the 92% into the decimal. Whatever you choose, just make sure to stick with it, and your end result will be in that format. So 92% on homework, that's given a weight of 1 unit, so we would technically multiply this by 1. And then they have an 85% on quizzes, so 85, and that technically gets multiplied by 1 as well for its 1 unit that it was assigned. And then they have a 93% on their group activities, and that has a weight of 1 unit. So that gets multiplied by 1. And then their first exam, they got a 95%. And the 2 midterm exams are given 1.5 units each. So this 95 gets multiplied by 1.5. Their second exam, they got an 84%, and that also has a weight of 1.5. And then lastly, their final, they got an 80%, and that's given a weight of 2 units. And now we want to take all of this and divide by the sum of our weights. So I'm going to take 1 for the homework, 1 for the quizzes, 1 for the group activities, 1.5 for the first exam, 1.5 for the second exam, and then 2 for the final. And I need to add all those together. So now this is going to give us the numerator. We need to evaluate that, and you should then get 698.5. And then that denominator, when we add all those together, that gives us 8. And now we can simplify that, and you should get 87.31 approximately. And this is going to be their percent in the course. So that's an example where a professor uses units as a weight. From my experience in most classes, I haven't seen that method too much, and a lot of times professors use a percent system. That's how I have my class set up. So we're going to work through this. Another example, using the same grades, but with a different grade setup. So here in this next example, we have that a professor has homework worth 20% of the final grade, quizzes worth 15%, group activities are 15%, each regular exam is 15%, and then the final exam is worth 20% of the final grade. And now, once again with this, we have percentages here. You could choose to take the percentages and put them into the decimal form, or leave them just as the regular numbers. Just stay consistent in what you use, and that end result that you get will be in the same format that you worked through the problem in. So using the same grades of the student up above, when they got a 92% on homework, well, homework is worth 20%, so I'm just going to multiply that by 20. And then they got an 85 on quizzes, so 85, and we're just going to multiply that by 15, because quizzes are worth 15%. And then they had a 93 on the group activities, so that's going to get multiplied by 15 as well. And same for their first 2 exams, because those are worth 15%. So we're going to have 95 times 15 and 84 times 15. And then lastly, their final, they got an 80%, and that is worth 20% of their grade. And now we need to divide this by the sum of all the weights. For most classes, if the professor has it set up properly and make sure you didn't miss anything, your denominator probably should add up to 100. But we can work through it and make sure to double check. So we need to take all of the weights for each of the categories and add them together. So 20 plus 15 plus 15 for the group activities, 15 for the first exam, 15 for the second exam, and 20 for the final. So now we can evaluate this. The numerator, if we simplify that with all that multiplication and division, you should get 8,795. And then that denominator, if we add all those together, you should get 100. So now this becomes 87.95% for their final grade. Now we can see their grade would be a little bit higher with this method, and that's essentially because their exams are worth a little bit less than what they were in that previous method with the units that they had. Just a slightly different weighted system.